Sponsored by Dennis J. Courtney, M.D., Director of the Courtney Medical Group, located at 3075 Washington Road in McMurray, Pennsylvania. For more information or to make an appointment, call 724-942-3002. That's 724-942-3002 for Dennis J. Courtney, M.D.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to AM Impact on Your Health. AM Impact on Your Health, where every day our goal to have you learn at least one thing to help you live better and longer. AM Impact on Your Health, well, it's heard each and every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 8 to 9 o'clock. I'm Dr. Dennis Courtney. I'm with you each and every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 8 to 9. AM Impact on Your Health, where each day you'll find current medical news, knowledgeable guests, fascinating health topics, and of course, where we do encourage you to call in to join in today. Interesting topic today, folks. I guarantee you, you've really heard nothing like this before. Talking about algae, not just any old algae, bioengineered algae, and how it may very well be the most important medical discovery of our time. Hey, that's a pretty good build-up. Anyway, we're going to be talking to a gentleman, Roland Thomas, has written a book, Awakening the Genius Within. We're going to find out about a Soviet scientist who discovered this stuff and just how effective it has been wherever it's been used. So the discussion on bioengineered algae today, and the topic as it unfolds may prompt you to want to call in to ask a question or to make a comment. That number, of course, as always, will be 412-825-6262. That's 412-825-6262 with Dr. Roland Thomas, our guest today. All right, as the schedule shapes up the remainder of the month and as we move into the month of February, on Wednesday, finally, Dr. Darren Starkey is going to be with us. We're launching our relationship with the company, Trace Mineral Research. The supplements put out by this company have been labeled by many of you, listeners and patients of mine, as top of the line in the way of mineral replacement therapies. And so Darren, who represents this company, located in Utah, but he's more local. He's right in the state of Virginia. We've spoken a number of times over the last few weeks. We're prepared to unveil and give you I think a real interesting show on Wednesday. From what I've seen in the advanced literature that I've been able to get from the company, it truly has been an awakening to me with respect of how effective these minerals can really be. So then moving into next week, we're going to bring Dr. Peter DeWitt back. Now you remember Peter, he's a unique physician originally hailing from South Africa, now nestled in the heart of Texas. But he's got a different approach. Besides being a medical doctor, he's saying that disease is a blessing. Remember that part? Disease is a blessing. And that no matter what, you can beat any disease. And he incorporates that into his practice. We're going to bring him aboard with us on the 26th. And I talked to his office and said, look, let's have Dr. DeWitt tell us how he would approach cancer, how it is that he would treat it. I'm sure he has many patients in his practice that he treats with this approach, and I'm anxious to hear how he combines the medical, physical, and spiritual component to being able to beat diseases of any type. That's Dr. Peter DeWitt, our guest, next Wednesday. And of course, as we move into the month of February, we're going to have with us on the 9th, Dr. Susan Smith-Jones. I want to appreciate the opportunity to repeat a show on Friday. I had a quick change I had to make in my schedule. My 18-year-old son last Monday, admitted to IUP, and on Friday, orientation. It was a crazy week, folks. It culminated with an entire day spent at Indiana University campus, interesting campus as it is. And I'm sorry I could not be, and had no idea that it was going to unfold this way. So we repeated the show with Dr. Susan Smith-Jones talking about Olbas products. I hope you enjoyed it. But she's coming back. She's going to be back on the 9th talking about libido boosting and using natural remedies. She calls it her Valentine's Day show, if you know what I mean. Looking forward to that on the 9th. Then Doug Inglesby returns, talking about pharmaceutical preparations and how just another one of many ominous issues that unfold that just are new and surprising. And of course, when we hear them, we go, oh yeah, well, what'd you expect? Anyway, Doug Inglesby, our guest, he'll be with us on the 16th. So that's how things are shaping up out there with respect to the up-and-coming schedule. We continue to add on as time moves on, and I'll apprise you of those guests that will be newly placed on the schedule as we get them on there. So, okay, I am so interested in getting to this topic today. And, I do a little bit of advanced preparation. Everything I turn to, literally this morning, it was so intriguing to me about this bioengineered algae. I think you're going to enjoy the story. If the factual conclusions of this story are as they appear to be, I think you're going to be real happy for that opportunity to hear about this bioengineered algae today. So let's take a short break. And in the interim, I'm going to go looking for Dr. Roland Thomas to find out about his book that he has written entitled Awakening the Genius Within, a story about a Soviet scientist and algae. Be back in a moment with Dr. Thomas. This is Dennis Shake, Corsi MD. We become confused about how best to manage your health. It's no mystery. Every time you turn on the television or radio, another expert has yet another suggestion for you to follow that seems to be reasonable enough, but no matter how dutifully you follow the instructions, it just doesn't quite produce the results that you were looking for. If this confusion sounds familiar to you, give us a call at the Center for Complementary Health, where we'll make some sense of the confusion based on a blending of traditional and alternative medicine that we've been perfecting over the last 7 years. We offer metabolic nutrition testing, immune system repair, natural hormone replacement therapy, chelation therapy, cutting-edge allergy correction, and a host of other safe and effective alternative therapies.
Dennis J. Courtney, M.D. is located at 3075 Washington Road in McMurray. Phone 724-942-3002.
Have you been to the doctor lately? What's the big top of your complaint list? Even if your doctor asks you what you eat, the recommended 5 servings of fruits and vegetables a day is a dream in your busy schedule. What if you learned of a product 5 years in the formulation that delivers 5 servings of fruits and minerals in just 1 ounce? That's right, it's through the Spirit. The blessings of Through the Spirit are now formulated into a delicious whole fruit puree product rich in antioxidants and minerals. Your health is more than just a test result. It's a balance of physical, spiritual, and emotional factors. You work regularly to strengthen your faith. Let Through the Spirit help cover your nutritional needs in a convenient and cost-effective ounce a day. Call 1-800-442-3793 for special promotional offers. Through the Spirit, for your good health. Through the Spirit, 5 servings of fruits and minerals with no added sugars. That's 1-800-442-3793 for your good health. Call them now, 1-800-442-3793.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back once again to AIM Impact on Your Health. We're here in KHB 620 each and every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 8 to 9 o'clock. I'm Dr. Dennis Courtney with you on this Monday version of the show, and I think you are in store for a real interesting ride today. On the surface, you think, well, geez, doesn't sound like that zing of a topic. Algae, what the heck is algae anyway? But when you hear about the story that I've been able to at least uncover partially up to now, I think you're going to be just as intrigued as I have, and I'm so interested in getting that information broadened by our guest today. Dr. Thomas is a president and founder of Bioengeneered, editor of its monthly nutrition and health Bio News newsletter. He's been a holistic health enthusiast since turning vegetarian at the age of 13. He's graduate from the University of Montreal, obtained his doctorate in natural health from Trinity College of Natural Health, and has come across, and we're going to find out how that happened, about an interesting scientist from Soviet Russia that has led us to our topic of bioengineered algae today. He's written a book on this particular matter called Awakening of the Genius Within. Let's say good morning to him right now. Good morning and welcome aboard, Roland Thomas.
Good morning, Dr. Corte. It's a pleasure to be here this morning.
Yes, and we're interrupting you in Canada, near Toronto, you tell me.
That's correct.
Where evidently you live. And you have come across the book. Your book that you have written entitled Awakening the Genius Within deals with a Soviet scientist, name of Dr. Michael Kiriak. And he's got a PhD within cellular nutrition, but he conducted some interesting work that you somehow came across. Could you tell us about this gentleman, how it is that you stumbled across this information? I've heard it no place else. This seems to be the only source of this, and it's such an intriguing story behind it in terms and the claims that are made that may be beneficial to all of our listeners. Take it away, Doctor, and tell us about Dr. Kiriak.
Thank you for the great introduction and putting the credit where it belongs. All I did was write the book so that I wouldn't have to tell the story to all of my clients in my practice. I met Dr. Kiriak 12 years ago. I was actually living in Colorado at the time, and I was in the process of semi-retiring back to Canada, my home country. And my wife's brother, who had been somewhat helping Dr. Kiriak immigrate to Canada after he left the Soviet Union, or really Moldova, in 1996. And I met him in the context of he was looking for investors to start promoting his product in Canada for the livestock industry. That's how we met. I was amazed by, or impressed by the man himself, his drama, his life story, and subsequently his research. And at the time, I was myself big into supplements. This was the late 90s, and if you recall, this was the explosion of use of supplements by the early takers, if you wish, the early baby boomers. And I was myself taking maybe 20 or 25 different bottles of supplements and mixing and matching and learning and applying in my practice somewhat. And Dr. Kiriak at the time told me, he says, Roland, you're pretty smart. After I described to him what I was doing, and he says, why don't you try this? Which I know, of course, by now he had explained to me what it was. And he never told me to stop anything. I just started using these green algae capsules. And really from there, my life changed 180 degrees. But enough with me. It changed in that it helped me in many of my challenges.
So you knew nothing more about the story at that point than, hey, Roland, why don't you try taking some of these capsules? That's how it all started.
Correct. But of course, he had told me his story, and I had seen his business plans from where he came from, his pedigree, and his knowledge. So I was quite sold intellectually. And it was too good to be true, frankly.
So what was the story? What were you told that intrigued you so much? And even though it was the rudimentary beginnings, it apparently had a wallop behind it that grabbed you. It certainly is grabbing me in the little I'm reading up till now. So intrigue me some more with what titillated you about this gentleman that then led you to taking these capsules.
Well, the first was that he was allowed, as a young scientist, to conduct research with natural herbs, in essence microalgae, which he had latched onto from a body of research that the Japanese had come up with since the 50s. He learned that in the 70s when he was finishing his degree at the Academy of Science. And he had achieved enough results in his late studies that the government gave him a mandate, of course a small mandate, locally, using local farms and a small research center to pursue his research with algae. Now, that is in itself extraordinary because which in America we don't have a mandate from the government to conduct study in natural health. It just doesn't happen. What we have in America is pharmaceutical companies with huge capital able to do these studies and pretty much so that they can patent it. While this study was done without such intention. The intention was to find solutions to real problems that they had in the western part of the Soviet Union. Namely, they had epidemic of cancer, pandemic really, and low productivity because they were, like in America, like we did, they were regrouping in a communist fashion all the small farms and farmers into these large production centers for dairy cows, for example, or for poultry, or hog farms, etc., which led to, as you know, with hygiene issues, poor nutrition issues, poor productivity, cancers, infectious disease, and so forth. So that's the foundation, if you were the base of his research. And from there, they looked at, in the next 15 years, more than 1,000 different strains of microalgae. They stayed true to the algae. They did, if you wish, deviate and try different combinations, algae with selenium and so forth, to try to increase their healing property. But eventually, the blend that they developed remained pure, a whole food, organic, and it's in the way that they blended the algae and the source where they grew them, and also the algal culture, the way that they grew them applied to the algae, what made the difference. And what the end results were that they, early on, they had tested with more than 20 species, most of them mammals, like us, and that comforted me, you know. We are a mammal, we human are a mammal. When there's 20 mammals with which the results are good, then I had a little bit of faith. I'm trying to lead to how it applies to us humans. This discovery and this blend that was eventually developed. But the results were applied eventually to very large trials of amounting to more than 1 million animals. To count, for example, 15,000 dairy cow farms, the 1 million egg-laying chickens, and mink farms totaling more than 10,000 mink, and a hog farm of 54,000 heads. Now, these are research. This is what amazed me the more, was that this was real, unbiased, if you wish, with no placebo as well, as animals don't know that they're taking a supplement, as well as what Dr. Kiriak will often tell us, animals don't lie. Basically, they don't go to the bar at night. So it's quite easy and realistic when you test with 100,000 heads of chicken, for example, compared with 100,000 that is not taking the supplement, when you have results such as the chicken taking the blend will yield 50 more eggs per year, or the mortality rate of the newborn chick within the tested group will drop from 10 per 100, or 10% die at birth, to less than 2 heads, or 2%. So when you compare that, this is, in my book, undeniable evidence, if you wish.
Yeah, I see here just some bullets that really catch my attention, probably will catch the ear of the listener. For instance, according to what I'm reading, is that Dr. Kiriak and his team, utilizing these algae, bioengineered algae supplements, here are the bullets, and it really grabs you. Halt a major cancer epidemic in the Soviet livestock industry which threatened the nation's food supply in the mid-70s. Number 2 bullet, enable 1.5 million chickens to lay an additional 50 eggs annually. I'm guessing that is a tremendous increase in their ability to produce. Prevent the development of many diseases, including cancers. Over 20 species of animals. Increase milk production in dairy cows by 3 gallons per day. That's got to be substantial. The list goes on and on and on. These occurred in animal communities and in animal populations. When was it that somebody felt that this may be applicable and should be brought into the human realm? How'd that occur?
In the Soviet Union, hopefully like in America, but more there. If you recall, I remember that as a youth. They were always conducting tests with animals first. It was the law. You would test endlessly with animals and many species until you even dare approach human testing. It makes sense. But in this case, Dr. Kiriak's mandate was the livestock industry. As a matter of fact, he was picked up by the Academy of Science, but eventually the project, when it became a reality, when the progress was significant, ended up being under the Ministry of Agriculture. So he had no mandate to work with humans, even though throughout the 15 years of study and research, they had always tested the formulas with themselves, the scientists, and to many farm workers testing their family, their pets, etc. As well, as written in the book, there were many small, not clinical, but trials for cases in local clinics, either for cardiovascular problems or some cancer or internal medicine, etc. So there was some informal research, but also conducting human research is dramatically more involved because of the human mind. I just want to open that bracket at this time. But what happened is in 1985, if you all recall, there was the terrible explosion of the reactor 1 at Chernobyl.
Chernobyl. Everyone remembers it.
We all remember that, all the pictures and so forth. And we were told 20% of the story. In reality, many more people died. A lot was hidden. This was under the communist time before the Berlin Wall was put down in 1990. A lot we don't know, but we know that the city of Chernobyl, 500,000 people were evacuated, and to this day is inhabitable for the next 100 years. It's still doing some radiation. The reactor wasn't even covered properly. But the point is that at that time, it was panic time. The government was panicking. They had to evacuate dying people in local, not local, they had to move people to hospital and camps and whatnot to either let them die in peace or try to save some. So Dr. Kiriak was allowed at the time, 300 miles away, to, in makeshift tents, work on a few hundred people that were sent there as hey, you've got a good blend of algae that's been successful in your research, why don't you, try this on these most likely dying people. That's how that happened. And, to summarize it, Dr. Kiriak explains that when you ask him about this, he'll always remind you what is radiation. Basically, it's degeneration, starting with the blood, the bone marrow, the spinal fluids, and eventually the organs and the eyes will pop out. You lose your hair, and that's the picture. And when asked what happened with the algae, he'll simply say, well, the reverse occurs. You have regeneration, which we humans are able to, as we know. You're mighty in that we're able to regenerate constantly. We rebuild to the tune of billions of cells every day. But children are even more resilient. So the success was great with children and some adults. More difficult with adults that were less disciplined or, that had already other energy issues or other engaged degenerative conditions. I just want to be clear. That's how Dr. Kiriak will explain it. So in essence, the blend is such efficient at nourishing the body as a fuel, because food is fuel, that it also is efficient at reaching the brain, where we have our magnificent hypothalamus, our supercomputer, this smart organ that is made of cells, like we are all made of cells, but regulates all metabolism in our body. Every hormone, even our energy, even the heart rate, the heartbeat, is really a function of a decision of the brain, really, the cooperation of the brain, and with the electricity in our body, and the Krebs cycle, and blood sugar, and the pH, and as a matter of fact, energy in the mitochondria of every cell, which may occur thousands of times in most of our cells, is really a function of the biochemistry of the brain, with that of the messaging with the peptides and the hormones. And that's the rationale that he, at the time, he theorized this concept of awakening the genius within. And that's why I named the book Awakening the Genius Within. By that, he means eating abundantly, but in an efficient, in a small meal manner, the brain cells, of course, but the hypothalamus subsequently awakens from its, often from its dormant or sluggish or lazy state. It's the fact that our brain, like any other organs in our body, becomes efficient and less energetic. And that's what explains that when the hypothalamus is more alert than the rest of our body, including our immune system. Fundamental energy is the immune system. Consequently, our pancreas, for example, a super organ that synthesizes digestive enzymes, alkalizing or insulin for regulating sugar in our blood. These organs are really regulated by the brain. So that's what is explained in the book, Awakening the Genius Within.
The Genius Within. So the Chernobyl victims, up to that point, the Dr. Kiriak's work dealt exclusively with animals, and as I would interpret what you told me was, the Soviet hierarchy said, you know what, we got all these people down here, they're dead, they're goners. You might as well, this is the perfect time to let's just see what you've learned with animals may potentially help humans, and the experiment appears to be miraculous in terms of numbers, and compared to anybody else who was trying to intervene and help those folks. I take it then that Dr. Kiriak's results were completely out of the norm that was experienced by any other attempt at rescue. Would that be a fair assumption?
Yes, but I don't think it was known or published in that sense.
No, it wasn't known. It was not published. We heard nothing about it.
Correct. I mean, within his circle, possibly, but, you know, this was a knee-jerk reaction. Here, grab a few people and work with them. And there was also some people affected by radiation, even 300 miles away from the epicenter, as we know. The way Dr. Kiriak described it is that it was an unfortunate event that allowed him to demonstrate to his the big research center where he worked that this same principle applies to humans, except that in human you have less discipline. You have more mental anguish, which affect, as you know, our stress and our lifestyle and our diet affect our health much more than disciplined animals. So, you know, his mandate was livestock, and there was separation of control and credit in the Soviet Union, just like there is in any political country. So he wasn't all of a sudden picked up to work on humans. His mandate remained to, matter of fact, they were reaching a point where they were going to roll out what they had achieved on this large poultry farm to other farms in Ukraine, which was the equivalent of our northwest United States, granola state, if you will. They were going to roll out to prove on several other farms before they would start to apply it globally. This was a very large project, but done in a very academic, scientific mode, step by step. And the budgets were allocated. And in 1990, this whole thing fell apart when the Soviet Union closed down many of its satellite states. They freed basically Moldova, which was the center of research. And Moldova, which is where Dr. Kyriak was born, became the poorest country in the Western Europe, or in Europe. To this day is one of the poorest countries in Europe. So the budget fell off or fell down, and Dr. Kyriak became a free man in terms of democracy and had to start earning his own money. He was no longer a government employee. He remained working at the poultry farm, which became a capitalistic company, selling the eggs and the egg powder to various countries and other centers. And he became very dissatisfied with that, and he was invited after a presentation in Brussels, Europe, on their findings. He was invited to move to Canada by a diplomat, a Canadian diplomat. And so that's how this project sort of fizzled out, if you wish, unfortunately. Now, I want to remind our listener and you, Dr. Courtney, that it is rare that such a project of this magnitude in natural health is ever supported by a government. And that's what amazed me. And I remember at the time, I was amazed that we decided to go to the moon, America, and the government stood behind that. And it happened. So imagine when the might of a country stands behind a research in natural health, what we could achieve. Yet, still. So
yeah, that's
fire in the book.
Yeah, that's a fair assessment. When the full force of a nation gets behind anything, things tend to happen. The Moon Project was a great example of it. The Soviet Union put quite a bit of faith behind the Good Doctors Project until there was no more Soviet Union, and then there was no more direction. There was no more country to put any emphasis behind it. I take it that's your point. And so now Dr. Kyriak still alive and still doing his work?
Yes, he's alive and very. And let me tell you quickly that his motivation, there's a motivation behind a country, and we remember that this was because of the fear of losing their food chain, really. But Dr. Kyriak's own motivation began early in his life when, as he told me, he had lost his grandfather, his father, sisters and brothers, over 7 members of his immediate family, pancreatic cancer, which was a genetic issue in his family, but also locally in Moldova, and remains an issue there, by the way. And that was as a 12-year-old boy who lost his father, was one of his motivation to learn health. And of course, in the Soviet Union, you couldn't really direct your career, but he was lucky. He picked up and allowed to study cellular nutrition or biology, passionate about it. And when he came out, his desire was to find solutions to human health, and particularly pancreatic cancer. That was really one of his underlying goals. But he ended up, by the way, as a scientist, they should have all ended up researching with animal anyway, which was the case here.
Yeah.
But that, I want to explain that was his motivation, to work, to toil 70 hours a week, to spend hours and evenings and nights working with assistants and so forth. This is a huge effort, and this is an extraordinary man. And it takes an extraordinary man to often be behind an achievement. Today he lives in Montreal. He immigrated there in 1996. Without any language skills in terms of French or English. When I met him in 1999, at the end of 98, he could barely speak. Now, since then, he has picked up French where sometimes he teaches me words. Got a pretty good brain. And he's also now able, after 11 years that I know him, to give some presentation. And he's able to speak with people on the telephone and so forth very well in English. But also, he began presenting to groups in English for the first time in Brazil. I was there with him at an anti-aging conference in December. For the first time, he spoke to a university group of scientists in English, and it was extraordinary.
Oh, glad to hear. Now, this use of algae, you know, we look at algae, I mean, if you look in a pond and the pond is green, I say, okay, that's algae. If you have a swimming pool and it turns green, it's algae. It's sort of like a nuisance kind of algae, too. We tried to get rid of that algae because we don't want it in our swimming pools. What are the because there are just hundreds, if not thousands, of different species of algae. What are the particular kinds of algae that he feels needs to be incorporated in supplementation? Certainly, if they're bioengineering them in order to be able to fill that, what is the formulation? What types of algae are those that have these extraordinary powers associated with them?
Yeah. Good introduction to algae. We should maybe have a little word on that. You know, algae, when I met Dr. Kiriak, he had already told me that algae one day would be one of the great sources of our fuel, of our energy, replacing oil. Fundamentally, algae are the foundation even of oil. They're really, eventually, they used to be algae. Every biomass, most of the biomass on the planet are algae in one form or another. There are macroalgae like sea kelp, there's big algae, and then there's microscopic algae. Here we are talking about the microscopic algae. And by the way, the algae have this knack for photosynthesis. They're able to gather the energy gathered from the light and stock it and liberate it for us and or for the car, as far as triglycerides or oil or fatty acids are involved. And in our case, what we get out of the microalgae is their extreme concentration in trace elements, minerals that we need daily, in the fatty acids, the omega, the protein, and the extraordinary antioxidant count. In other words, there are more antioxidants in certain species of algae, like the red algae, like Dunaliella, to your question, which contain a mix of carotenoid antioxidants, dozens of different carotenoids, like beta-carotene, like lutein, lycopene, all those words that we know, that we hear of, that are important for prevention of cancer. Even the Cancer Society will tell you multiple foods of different colors, yet those carotenoids, which are able to cross our brain barrier, even feed our eyes, which is crossing the blood-iris barrier, which is even a most tight homeland security in our body. So the algae in the blend are those that are quite known at this time. There are some blue-green algae, or spirulina as well as red algae, Dunaliella, and one that is less known, but that has the most powerful antioxidants naturally occurring on Earth. The name of the algae is Hematococcus fluvialis. Hematococcus fluvialis. That's a Latin word. And what we really get out of that algae is its astaxanthin, this extraordinary, powerful, yet safe antioxidant, astaxanthin. And the blend is made up of 4 different algae combined together for complementary value. 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 equals 1,111, if you wish, in terms of synergy. The other dimension of the blend, which is critical for people to understand, is not just adding those 4 algae together. Anybody can do that, and some people are trying, and I hope they succeed, but it's also where he grows them. and the way that they're nurtured. Where he grows them, in this case, is out of, currently, out of Kamchatka, Siberia, which is that long, elongated peninsula that goes towards Alaska. Probably that's what Sarah Palin saw.
When she looks off her porch.
Yeah, it's really, if you look at that, you'll see that long peninsula. It's the most active volcanic peninsula on Earth. More than 40 volcanoes are active at this time. And the scientists were able to, since they didn't have the desert and the lagoon like Hawaii or Lake Clemente or the temperature for growing algae with the sun and enough warm, they went and they gathered thermal spring geyser water, which is already heated up at 100 plus degrees Fahrenheit, but which is also coming up from thousands of feet below the peninsula, which contains hundreds of trace elements. This is a very rare occurrence that there can be so many trace elements in one spot on Earth. So the blend, at the end of the blend, you'll find more than 110 known mineral/trace elements. Typical algae, such as grown on Hawaii or Australia or California, you'll find 50 or so trace minerals. So there is an extraordinary value here, which differentiates the blend and the algae from standard, and that's why we call it bioalgae. Concentrated, it's not so much engineered as the source is richer than others, but also the way that they've grown them, they discovered the use of technology in bioreactors, in turbulence control, in temperature control, and light, exposure to light. Also, a huge differentiator is the protection from pollutants, airborne pollutants, particularly clouds of various oils that are in our lakes and our oceans. Also in our ocean, we have mercury, PCB, and many other pollutants that are not mentioned in the press at this time, and also bird excrement or fish excrement and so forth. While from the geyser, that pure water, rich soup pumped into bioreactors remains protected. They're lagooned, they're covered facility, exposed just enough light, the proper temperature, and so there is no pollutants whatsoever, no heavy metals, no parasites, or etc., etc. Those are big differences because when you have the microalgae already so tiny that it can be affected by pollutants dramatically to lose its potential, to lose its power. I think a good example that I use is a pumpkin. I can grow a pumpkin in my garden here, which I've tried, and I failed miserably. I got myself a 6-inch or 8-inch pumpkin. Not too bad, but you've all known or all seen the pictures of these gigantic pumpkins in those contests. Well, in the realm of microscopic algae, this is no longer just an art. There's a science that Dr. Kiriak and his researchers have been able to implement. And that explains that the results are so extraordinary, that it's an extraordinary efficient food, yet it's a very small meal.
All right. Now, the issue of this is a supplement I'd like to delve into. In fact, in what I've been able to read on my own here is that when it comes to supplements, you wouldn't be looking at this algae as a supplement. In fact, you say, and maybe the good doctor has said, that supplements per se aren't necessarily all that good, and that the use and taking of algae would be far superior. Talk to us a bit about that diverse opinion there in terms of supplementation versus consuming algae, which is supposedly, I guess, are not supplements, they're whole foods.
Yeah, that's a really good question, Doctor. I have to be diplomatically correct here. I studied supplements for many, many, many years, and at the end of the day, the famous saying, "Let thy food be thy medicine," is really not applied when you take supplements, because supplements are not food. Let's be real. They are separate. I mean, most of them. I'm not talking about green supplements and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
But supplements are often separate, isolated or mixed and so forth. They're man-made, they're man-engineered, and they're meant to supplement deficiencies or to increase particular chosen aspects of our biochemistry. For example, you'll take a megadose of vitamin C to prevent a cold. You'll take vitamin D to prevent cancer. You'll take vitamin E to prevent joint issues. It's quite, let's be honest, allopathic thinking. It's somewhat the same as what we blame the pharmaceutical model for. And I don't, by the way. I'd like to cooperate, and there are many, many instances where our pharmaceutical industry and medical industry save life every day. Let us cooperate. Let us be more, friendly here. But my take on supplements is that I've been able to stop taking supplements myself because I have returned to my faith in food as fuel. But obviously, you have to make an effort there. You have to eat the best superfood, and I should say pure food and organic, and not too much. The biggest failure in our health is that we eat too much, and we make ourselves sick by too much. Never mind what you eat. I'll use the example of this fellow in Montana. Is 114 years old, at the age of 66, and he knows nothing about health and nutrition. He just was finding himself growing fat, gaining weight, and losing his energy. He was retiring, and what he did, out of the blue, that's a long time ago, he quit eating dinner. But he got another job, and he worked until he was 99, and then they fired him, and he worked as a volunteer in a library. To this day, he walks to work. He has his breakfast of eggs and ham, and then a lunch, and then he doesn't eat dinner. That's his secret. And he says all he's losing is eyesight. Imagine that. Imagine what medicine is if you can just eat less. You'll be far better. Anyway, I digress here. The bioalgae are really a food, so they're whole food. They're organic, just extremely efficient. And in that sense, they're not a supplement, but I call them a complement to your diet. I call them brain meals. The small capsules that you'll take, they're veggie capsules. You'll take 3, 4, 5, 6 times a day, let's say at 2 hours interval, to achieve this awakening of the genius within. That's the whole strategy. Because when you wake up the genius within, immediately in 20 minutes, there's regulation supervision. I mean, your digestive enzymes, your pancreas, your alkalizing juices, your intrinsic factor, your intestines were actually in cooperation with the brain hormone are more efficient right away. There is pacification of irritation because of pH. There is less tremors in people that have tremors. The blood sugar is shown lowered. Various for example, hormonal hot flashes, for example, are seen moderated. There's greater assimilation of your nutrients in your food, which is what explains, in one of the bullets that you were reading before, it was shown in the research that cows give you 3 gallons of milk more daily, 3 gallons, for eating 1 gram. 1 gram. 3 gallons is many hundreds of grams.
Oh, yeah.
But for eating 1 gram of the bioalgae per day, the cow gives you 3 gallons more of milk, and furthermore, that same cow is able to eat less by 1.25 pounds of its daily protein feed. If you do the math.
Yeah, you can. You just sort of wrap yourself around that one. It's you give less, but what you're taking is more whole foods, and the yield, which is sort of how they really grade livestock, and those who own it have to put the whole force of economics behind how well they produce for them. But you're saying the human being can also benefit. In fact, you go one step further. You actually do have this form of bioengineered algae available in supplement form. Why don't you take a moment and let's just talk about your book, how to get it, how one could get a copy of it, and also with respect to the supplements, they are available. These special kinds of algae you can take, ladies and gentlemen, and how they could find out more about getting them so the listeners could take them themselves.
First, let me offer the book free to the first 50 callers. I wrote the book so that I could spread the word. The book, I'll be honest, is a wonderful marketing tool for me because anybody that reads the book wants to try this food. It's a no-brainer. When you read the book, it's compelling. It's evidential. If you wish, the reference of it, so you feel the integrity. The book is called Awakening the Genius Within. Please take the telephone and call I'll give you a number.
Yeah, here's the number. Go ahead, folks. Go ahead.
And just leave your name, your address, your telephone number, and email, and spell it out clearly so we can send you the book right away. We don't have to call you back to check your name and address. The number is 877-288-9116. 877-288-9116, and just ask for the book, and we will give it to you at no charge. The product has been formulated for human as a dietary supplement, and it is, by the way, Health Canada certified as a natural product with verification of content, of purity, of presence of no lead or heavy metal. In Canada, the rules are very stringent when you apply for a natural product license. So it's got that certification. And in the United States, it's brought in as a dietary supplement, totally FDA legal, if you wish.
Okay.
And so under the name of Bio Superfood, and the website, you check it out, find out more information, is at bioage.com.
Bioage.com.
Yes, correct. BIOAGE.com. So that's the commercial aspect, and it is sold in 3 different grade or formulations for fitting to the different populations. For example, Formula 1 is the gentle formula for children, because children don't need the big, more therapeutic big gun, if you wish.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's a Formula 2, which is sort of in the middle for prevention, for teens, for young adults, for athletes. You want to be in the prevention, ideally. And it is quite nutraceutical in that it will help regenerate faster because it keeps your brain more alert. And the Formula 3 is the most advanced strength, which yields more brain food because it has more of the carotenoid content, more of the red algae content, and it is yield more results. And you'll feel also more energy, more strength, as in athletic, or basically just getting up from the bed, and the mental energy, the focus, the clarity often that you get in your life because your brain is more energized is basically apparent. It's tangible. It's not a product that you take and you wonder if it's helping you. It's a product that's in your face. Often within the first day, often within a few hours, people notice a shift, a change, and subsequently it's obvious because you'll get more bowel movement. You'll get a deep, profound sleep. You won't fall asleep in the afternoon after eating your lunch, for example, or you'll be more pleasantly awake at night wanting to read a book. Those kinds of simple, in-your-face, evidential demonstration of the results of consuming this complement to your health, to your diet.
Now, this supplement comes by way of being cultured and grown in Siberia still to this day?
Correct. It is grown there for the reason mentioned, because there's no pollution, the trace elements. It is freeze-dried on location, in a fine green powder, and it is imported to Canada, actually near Montreal, where Dr. Kiriak supervises the blending. Very sophisticated affair, because you have to blend it so that it is standard in every capsule. And that's approved. He's gotten the approval of Health Canada that it's a standard capsule, meaning every capsule has the same proportion of the 4 algae. Imagine the blending is quite an art or a science. And then it's encapsulated there and bottled and sold in Canada, and my company, Bioengeneered, imports it in the United States for delivery in the United States.
Very good. And give us an idea about the expense involved. How costly is this product?
Well, it's on the first look, it looks quite expensive. I'll give you the ranges. It's from $50 to $125 for the Formula 3. But that's a 1 to 2 month supply. And if you compared it with many other products on the market, it should be maybe priced at 10 times more. That's kind of I know it's braggish to say that, but because of the results are so extraordinary, for one. The other thing that you have to consider is you can reduce significantly your other supplements, if not at all, if not completely. And I'm not telling people what to do, and that there may be some supplements that are needed for your situation, and we have to be fair with all that. You can take it with any other supplement. There's no contraindication. You can take it with your medication, as there are no known contraindication of eating a food.
Sure.
A food, which is what it is, a dietary supplement.
Tell you what, Doc, I got they're bongoing me out of here, meaning we've come to the end of our time. You got to promise to come back. We just get into the nitty-gritty of the supplements. I think my listeners would like to hear more about the supplementation. Promise to come back?
Yes, I will, Dr. Courtney, sir. It was a pleasure to be with you.
All right. We'll arrange for it, ladies and gentlemen. We'll bring Roland Thomas back. We were intrigued today. We'll learn some more. Until then, this is Dr. Dennis Courtney with Roland Thomas saying so long for AM Impact on Your Health.